I would like to bring up CarePort from Cambridge, Massachusetts, founded by Harvard MD candidates to help hospitals find the right aftercare, which right now costs hospitals about $7 billion. So, CarePort, if you would like to come up on stage. Timer right there.
Great.
And it will begin when you start.
Thanks. Thanks for that introduction. We're CarePort. What we do is we help find the right post-hospital care for patients. My name is Sxsw. I'm CEO and co-founder of CarePort. My co-founders and I come from the medical space. Over the last couple of years, we've been training at Harvard hospitals, and we've walked hundreds of patients through the process of finding post-hospital care. Millions of patients need some type of additional care after leaving a hospital, whether it's at a nursing home or rehab center or going home with a visiting nurse or physical therapist. It's the hospital's responsibility to help patients find that care. But let me show you the tools that hospitals have. They have lists of facilities and service providers, which you then have to call each and every single one to see if they take your insurance, whether they're going to meet your clinical needs. You're faxing over all of patients' data to these service providers and asking, hey, is there a room for my patient? As you can imagine, with all this back and forth, it can take up to 20 hours to place a patient. In hospitals, they bear the cost of these inefficiencies. So each day of delay costs hospitals $2,000 per patient. There's no reason why it has to be like this. In so many other industries, we've seen online booking engines for hotels, restaurants, even babysitters. There's no reason why your hospital should be booking your care with a fax machine. So we set out to build an online booking engine for post-hospital care. And to do so, we assembled an experienced technical team that includes Jonathan Helm, a professor of engineering and operations at Indiana University. He's a national expert on patient flow models, and he's built patient flow solutions for GE, University of Michigan Hospital Systems, and the Mayo Clinic. Our technical lead is Ian Asaf, and he has over 7 years of software engineering experience at leading venture-backed startups, including Ware and SessionM. Our board of advisors also includes national experts on both sides of the marketplace. Dr. John Halamka, CIO of Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, sits on the committees of multiple national committees on healthcare IT. On the other side, we have John Durr, who's the former SVP, CTO, and CIO of Golden Living, which is a national chain of post-acute care providers in 22 states with over 300 locations. So let me show you the online booking engine that our team has built. Any hospital can go in, enter their patient's insurance, clinical needs, preferences, click search facilities, and from there you get a list of facilities that meet your patient's individual needs. You can click on a facility, learn more about them, and from there book a reservation immediately. We took our product to Mass General Hospital, and for them this is such a critical problem that they wanted to be our first pilot. We went live with Mass General in January, and now we're excited to announce that we have over 4,000 beds in our care network. We are also excited to announce that just last week, we closed our seed financing round. With our customers, advisors, and investors behind us, we're ready to tackle this $2.5 billion market. Right now, we're focused on helping patients find the right post-hospital bed, so doing bed bookings. But ultimately, our vision is much bigger than that. We want to be the one-stop shop for patient transition. So that means booking medical transportation, getting the patient from the hospital to these care facilities, and also booking the medical equipment that patients need once they're at the post-acute care facilities. By streamlining all of these patient transitions, we believe that CarePort can save the healthcare system billions of dollars and improve care for millions of patients. Thank you.
Nobody ever finishes early. That's very good. I didn't have to come up and chase you off. Bob, start with you.
Two quick questions.
Sure.
While the experts are preparing, can I use your system to find, can I use it to find a doctor in a hospital?
Can you find a doctor in a hospital?
Yeah, instead of just after the doctor in the hospital, how about finding the doctor in the hospital?
So right now we're not focused on finding sort of acute care. Right now we're really focused on short-term rehab after the hospital stay. But that is something that we can move into, but
And
not
how about
hard.
evaluations and, like, dislike, or critique of these facilities?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things as medical students that we heard from patients over and over again is, I'm going to these facilities for 2 to 3 weeks and I have no idea what to expect. I don't even know where they're located, what's going to happen there, how many times I'm going to be seeing a doctor or a nurse. And so what we're actually including is patient reviews of these facilities so that patients really get a good idea of what's going to happen to them at these facilities.
Very quickly, but this is the hospital doing it, not the patient, right? Or is it the patient doing it?
Both can do it, actually.
Okay.
So we've created a pretty nimble platform. And originally we thought of this as mainly a hospital problem. I mean, we've worked in the hospitals, been through the nitty gritty of it. But what we heard from our patients over and over again was, I'm going to these places. I want my daughter who's living in California to help me find these places. I'm going to be here for a month. I want to know if there's a hair salon or, whether I can smoke there, all the things that patients want to know about. So we decided to create a patient portal that allows them to make these selections.
Could you just elaborate on the business model? Who pays for the service, and if so, what are the fee structures that you've set up?
Sure. So we see ourselves very much as a marketplace play, and it would be great to be able to charge both sides of the market, but I think that's really difficult to scale. And so what we're going to do is start with charging hospitals a subscription fee tiered based on the size of the hospital. Later on, I think charging marketing fees to these service providers makes sense, given that we are sort of a lead generation business for them. But I think in the beginning, focusing on hospitals is the way to go.
Frida.
How do you choose the facilities that come on? Are there any criteria for inclusion, quality metrics that are used in other systems like CMS, et cetera? And then do you have an exclusion criteria? And then last, while you're doing those, how do we ensure that the data is current?
Right. So our approach, at least in the beginning, is to be very inclusive. It's actually law that you're supposed to be able to provide patients choices in where they're supposed to go, and so we don't want to be exclusionary in the beginning. That being said, we recognize that there are quality metrics out there, like the CMS 5-star Medicare rating. There's a departmental health score in the same way that you might look at, what the health score for a restaurant is. You want to see, hey, how is this place scoring in terms of cleanliness, or how their inspections going. So we do have those scores in there, and we show patients that. And hospitals also have relationships with these service providers, right? So some of them, they actually can send their own doctors to check up on their patients, and so they, there's notations around those nuances as well.
John?
This is a great space to be in. I'd probably say over the last year, at least 4 companies have come by sort of going actively after space, 2 young, 2 much more mature companies. Who do you view in the competitive landscape, and who do you worry about?
Sure. So I really like to bucket the competition to 2 different categories. I think there's a lot of legacy competitors, the large EMR companies that do some part of this, so they do sort of e-document transmission. So what that is basically they are able to pull electronic medical records, push a button, and then it goes to another fax machine. We're actually trying to intervene even before that. We're trying to intervene in the part where you're actually choosing where you can even send these facilities, which of these facilities even have room. So that's one side of the competition. The other side of the competition is, we've heard of a lot of these startups who are doing sort of similar bed bookings, whether it's an assisted living facility. There's another startup that's doing sort of really focused on patient reviews of these facilities. And I think what really makes us different is that we're building actually care matching algorithms. I mean, that's why we have Jonathan as our team. He's almost our secret weapon. He's able to help us build a better product by being able to better match patients to the care facilities.
There's a lot of companies, for example, that do the video in the hospital room. They provide you all the TVs and all, and they do exactly this for the people in the checkout. So they have large deployments. They have lots of places that are using large adoption among hospitals. How do you compare against that? Because people are already watching the TV, and they can provide you on the TV all this information as well.
Right. So what we're doing is we're not just sort of presenting the information, we're actually building a platform where patients can actually engage with these post-acute care providers, right? And so you can actually go in, not only see the places that are available to you, but if you have questions, if you want to book a virtual tour, these are things that you can actually communicate with the aftercare providers. And additionally, when these transitions happen, right now, family members don't know, primary care doctors don't know, and these are things that we're actually able to communicate with PCPs and with family members about what's happening.
Frida, you look like you were leaning
I
in.
look like I was leaning in, absolutely. So you've had a lot of, you have a lot of beds represented on either side. How many actual patient transitions have you had to date? And are there any opportunities for improvement that have been fed back to you from the process that you've run thus far?
Sure. So we have over 75 users in our system. And in terms of the number of, in terms of to actually improve, I think we're still, on the rising end of the learning curve. Some of the things that we're learning right now is, for example, what exactly primary care doctors want to know, what's helpful for them. So we have focus groups with the Harvard primary care doctors that's being set up. Other things that patients want to know that we don't even expect is, what should I bring to a post-acute care center? And be able to manage patient expectations around that is really important for hospitals, something that we had no idea sort of going into this. We thought, okay, we'll just automate this and that'll be enough. But hospitals like Mass General are actually asking us, can you help us manage our patient expectations? What we found is that their satisfaction with our surgery is really tied to how satisfied they are with the rehab. They're there for 2 weeks, they're here for 3 days. So those are the things that customers have been asking us about.
Bob, looked like.
The status quo is often unhelpful to startups. Do you have any obstacles, like is HIPAA or purchasing organizations standing in your way?
Yeah, so, I think healthcare is a very challenging space to innovate in. And the approach that we've taken is that we don't want to just go in there and disrupt everything. Hospitals don't like new workflows. They don't want to have to, get everyone to do all these new things and use new technologies that's really flashy and shiny. And so the approach that we've really taken is, let's work with case managers at hospitals like Mass General. Let's work with nurses at these post-acute care facilities and really build a product that they want to build, that's not disruptive, that really makes their jobs easier.
Bill.
Yes, I have a general question about how you scale this model. So local data is notoriously tricky to keep accurate, reflecting a little bit what Frida said, but you've also got to go out and deal with all these different local healthcare settings. What are the general points of integration you think you're going to have to do? You don't integrate with billing systems, you kind of live outside the existing workflow, yet you've got to aggregate local data across thousands of communities and then market this concept and get it picked up in kind of an organic way. How do you really see scaling this way up?
Sure. So I see that question broken down to sort of the data integration part and then the onboarding part, if I understand it correctly. And in terms of the data part, I don't think we could have done this 5 years ago. Part of meaningful use is to be able to do these transitions of care documents, to be able to send these packets of information from the hospital to the next care provider. Because that's part of the EMR product now, I think that's really helpful in that we don't actually have to reach into a hospital system and pull random bits of data. That's actually being pushed out in a standardized way. The second question in terms of going to each of these hospitals and then onboarding the skilled facilities, that can be very tedious. One learning that we've had is that hospitals are really the hubs of these networks. Once you onboard a hospital, for example, once we onboarded Mass General, we got 40 facilities right off the bat. And these facilities are really dependent on these hospitals for volume, and so they're eager to get on whatever platform that the hospital is using.
So we got 45 seconds left. Frida, and then I know everybody wants to ask questions. John, you want to go?
Just quick, since you can live outside of the EMR, it's been very hard for companies to succeed if you're not integrated in. Can you talk about 2 companies you've looked at that have succeeded living outside the EMR?
Sure.
And do that in 30 seconds.
So I think some companies that have done really well in terms of not sitting within the workflow is, for example, Meditech, right? They go in and say, we're not going to customize our software for you. You might have your own physicians organizations, EMR, but we're going to sit outside of that. And they've actually gone with a low-cost model. They're now in over 3,000 hospitals in the U.S., and they don't do any sort of customization for hospitals. I think that's the approach that we want to take in order to scale.
And that is right at 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very good job. Very good job.